Yo, what's up, everybody? It is 2018. It's 2019, James. No, 2018's over. Yeah, pretty wild year for me. I got a lot done, did a lot, played a lot. Finally got that big silver play button thanks to you guys. And I know I've said this like a million times, but like really, thank you guys for your support. Like if it wasn't for you, I would not be here. And it's not about the numbers. It's not about the stupid plaque. It's if it wasn't for your support, I would still be a cashier who hates existing every day. So, like, for real. Thank you guys. Finally played through the Dark Souls series, and I know I said I didn't really care for those games last year, but I decided to give them a second chance. I remember I said something about them having, like, Norse mythology, which people got really mad at me for. Yeah, it turns out I wasn't thinking Dark Souls when I said that. I was thinking Dark Siders. Oops. Yeah, but I played through 3, and I thought it was okay. Like, I liked it. It was good, you know, I had some cool moments. I just didn't really think it was amazing, but then I tried to get into 2, and I couldn't really get into 2. It wasn't bad, but I totally understand why that's the one that people don't really seem to like that much. Then I got 1 on the Switch, and man, that is a good game. It's super duper clunky and even poorly designed in some spots, but that world is just so much fun to explore, the whole way it all interconnects with itself. But none of those games even came close to holding a candle to Bloodborne, man. I finally gave that one a shot early 2018, played through it 3 freaking times. I loved it so much. I also did the DLC. I got the Platinum Trophy in that thing. Man, that game is incredible. I also replayed some classics. I've been playing Adventures of Lolo lately since that dropped on the Switch not too long ago. I replayed Portal 2, still just as amazing as I remembered it. I replayed every 3D Mario for that video series, like a lot of people probably already know. That was a journey and a half. Like, replaying all those games with a more critical eye was a really interesting experience because that's like my favorite series of all time. I also played the Shadow of the Colossus remaster. That's a new coat of paint on an old favorite. Held up super well, I thought. And I got to experience some classics for the first time too. The Spyro games. I never really played them that much before, but I finally beat 1 and 2 in the HD remake trilogy, and man, I love them. But you know, I don't want to count like remakes or remasters or stuff for this list. I just want to count the new stuff because I played a lot of new stuff. And for once, I actually got to play every single game I was looking forward to. Except God of War. Never got around to it. Still haven't played that one. But other than that, here's what I did play. My 10 favorite games of 2018.
Number 10.
Now this is something I never expected to ever exist. The original 2D Mega Man series is one of my absolute favorites when we're talking about the classics, and after years and years of total neglect from Capcom, we saw a faithful, true to the series return. I was half convinced this was going to be a big pile of poop, knowing Capcom's track record with the Blue Bomber, but I was pleasantly surprised. Definitely doesn't push the envelope, you know, it doesn't break any new ground, but hey, it's a good 2D Mega Man. It plays like it should, it feels like it should, and there's a handful of new things to make things interesting. The double gear system, I thought it was really cool. It adds a small layer to the level gimmicks, but it also adds a lot to the replay value by affecting your arsenal of weapons. And the little bits of story they had in there was also pretty nice, diving into Wily and Light's past and exploring how they used to work together way back when, and the inciting moment where Wily turned on his colleagues. It's really not going to blow anybody's mind, and I'm praying this isn't going to be all they do with Mega Man for now, but by God, it's a new, good Mega Man game, and that's pretty dope.
Number 9.
There is something about stupid, goofy stealth games that I just love to death. Metal Gear Solid 5 was like a toy box, and I could not get enough of it. So, of course, when I heard that Hitman is pretty similar in concept and tone, I had to give it a shot. I've never really played the Hitman series before, but I jumped on into Hitman 2, and I had a blast. Blending in is the name of the game, and you've got all of these different options to pull off the perfect assassination. You might disguise yourself as the barbecue man and then serve this guy poisoned food at the family get-together, or you might steal a goofy mascot costume from a guy that already stole it from somebody else and then use his car keys to break into his vehicle and figure out where your target is. There is always so much going on at any given level at any given time.
I have a friend who's into that sort of thing. Cosplay,
It is dumb and silly in the best way possible. It takes itself so seriously, yet it feels like everybody is in on the joke, like this menacing assassin man putting on some clothes and being like, hey, I'm a chef now, and everyone's like, hey, he's a chef now. Everybody is just okay with this, and it backs it up hard with the stupid canned dialogue.
Looking good, man. Looking good.
I think my favorite moment is when I disguised myself as a film's artist to meet with the director in private because I had to kill him. And I just started painting his picture because Agent 47 is just somehow suddenly amazing at painting for no reason. And then I stop painting and I throw my knife at him. And I completely miss. So I slowly walk all the way across the room. I pick it up and I kill him. The crazy amount of options here make this game so much fun to replay over and over and experiment with how many different ways you can pull this thing off. If you love open-ended and silly stealth games like Metal Gear, this is a must-play.
Number 8.
Ever since I played through Resident Evil 7 in VR, I've been itching to play another good VR horror survival game. Survival horror game. Yeah, you know what I meant. And while there's plenty up there on the PlayStation Store, there's not a whole lot that are really, really good. The Persistence. This was the scratch to that itch. It's a procedurally generated roguelike survival horror game, and yeah, I know it sounds like I just threw way too many genres into a blender and came up with a phrase that is longer than it should be, but The Persistence has so many cool ideas that it executes pretty dang well. Imagine, I guess, like a VR version of Dead Space, but mixed with SCP Containment Breach. If anybody remembers that old thing from like years ago, you're locked into a space station full of different kinds of creatures, and each one reacts to you in a different kind of way. Like, for example, there might be ones that are blind but have super duper hearing, right? So you've got to sneak around, search for supplies, and try to make your way to each objective without getting murdered alive. Who says that? Murdered alive? But the coolest thing about this game is hands down the companion app. You can have a friend download the app to their phone and play as your Otacon. They can use their phone to scan upcoming rooms for items and tag and mark enemies so you can see them through the walls, or they can set off traps and stuff. They can be your hacker guide throughout the game. If you got a VR and you want something scary with a big focus on survival and exploration and has great replay value, The Persistence is exactly what you want.
Number 7.
I really feel like there's not enough story-driven co-op experiences out there. There's been tons of games I've been able to hop into with friends and just have fun, you know, just play a game, but sometimes I really wish I could sit down with a good story that requires a second person to get through. A Way Out, that was exactly what I was looking for. It's a story-driven adventure game focusing on two convicts that escape from prison, and they seek revenge on a common foe once they're free. It's almost like a buddy comedy, like the two don't always get along, and their differences in character created a lot of fun, hilarious, and emotional moments. The ending of this game had Brady and I in tears, dude, and while I'm not going to spoil what happens, obviously, there is a brilliant moment that really takes advantage of it being a two-player video game, and nothing else could have done that. I really love how there's a lot of times in the game where the story will not progress until you and your friend can come to an agreement. My guy says we should release the horses as a distraction.
No, I want to beat people.
This story could not have worked as a movie or a book or even a single-player game. Sit down with a close friend of yours, hop on through it, and you'll see exactly what I mean.
Number 6.
I bet you guys didn't see this one coming. Yeah, this is probably the one that's going to be on like every freaking YouTube list, but hey man, it's Smash Bros. It's got everybody. You can play as like 5 different dogs this time. That's pretty cool. It's always really interesting seeing the series change with every title. There's characters I did not like playing as in Brawler Melee that I actually really enjoy playing this time around. Young Link and Wolf are both big favorites of mine. I know reception to it has been mixed, but I actually really liked World of Light. It was not the adventure mode I was hoping for, and I don't blame anybody for being disappointed in that, but it felt like a more bombastic and ambitious version of the event matches to me, which, honestly, I've had a hard time caring about those since Melee. Though my favorite part of this mode was seeing the subtle homages to specific characters and events within different games. Seeing them chuck together a bunch of items and characters and being like, oh, that's from this game because of this. That was really cool seeing over over and over. And easily the best version of classic mode in the series this far too. It felt a lot less thrown together and more like a deliberate sequence made for every individual fighter. Got a lot of good mileage out of the online for once too. Not a lot of my friends had a Wii U, but all of my friends got a Switch, so this time I always had tons and tons of people to play with.
Number 5.
I've never really been huge into superheroes. I'm not one to see like the 5 Marvel movies every year, but I have always had a soft spot for SpiderMan. Insomniac Games did an incredible job with this one. The swinging, the combat, the movement, man. Everything feels so good. And the story, it was surprisingly touching, very well paced, very character driven, and it had a lot of hard emotional punches sprinkled throughout. Having all of those different spider suits to choose from was also cool as hell. I really fancy myself the noir suit just because of how badass it looked. All those side activities gave me a lot to do, even if they were somewhat mundane like snapping photos or picking up backpacks. I guess you could compare it to Tony Hawk in a way, like your goals are boring things like knocking over boxes, like that's not fun, but it's the fact that you get to do them on a skateboard. It's the fact that you get to do them as Spider-Man that makes them so much fun to do. It's really not often that I play a game where just getting around is so freaking fun to do. Just getting from one end of the map to the other has never been so entertaining. This game truly does make you feel like Batman.
Number 4.
Get ready!
Warioware! It's always been a big favorite of mine. I love how every title does a fantastic job of showing what exactly this hardware can do, but in a way that feels genuinely fun rather than, just for the sake of doing it. Warioware Gold is a similar game to Rhythm Heaven Megamix, remastering tons and tons of microgames from prior titles while throwing in tons of new ones as well. You've got button games, touchscreen games, and tilt games, combining the original, touched, and twisted all into one gigantic crazy package. And then you get stages that switch between them constantly, and then eventually it gets harder and they stop telling you what kind of game it is, so you have to be quick on your toes and figuring out whether or not you'll need the stylus or the buttons or the gyroscope. And for the first time in Wario history, even Mario history by extension, the cutscenes are fully voiced. That was a really interesting addition. I really did not think I was gonna be okay with Wario speaking lines longer than his usual short phrases. Like hearing him just talk like a normal human, that was kind of weird at first, but you can really tell that Charles Martinet had a blast recording these lines, and it was super entertaining. But the best feature in this game by far was the ability to dub the cutscenes yourself with the 3DS's crappy microphone.
We're not gonna I guess I could have been worse.
That's it. That's it, buckos! Brady and I had way too much fun with this. We actually have the entirety of all of the dub cutscenes that we did over on Nitro Rad Extras. There's a link below if you want to check that out. It's so fun, dude.
Welcome to Giant Burger. What can I get you?
Big gravy.
Number 3.
VR just keeps on blowing me away, man. I always thought a VR platformer would have to be something like in first person, and that would be really weird and clunky, like maybe like a VR Mirror's Edge, I don't know, but Astrobot Rescue Mission showed me exactly how a VR platformer can work really well in third person. Tag along with your little robot friend as you tackle each and every level, blasting gizmos and gadgets out of your controller to clear a path forward. This is like the most adorable game I've ever played. Like the way Astrobot waves at you and you boing him around on the tightrope from your controller. This is a game that is just impossible to play without a big stupid smile on your face. One of the coolest things about this game is the sense of scale it has. You spend most of the game feeling gigantic in comparison to the character you're playing as, but then you get these scripted events and boss fights that make you feel like an ant. The VR is really what makes this game what it is. You're controlling a small character, yeah, but your physical presence is also always involved in the level design as well. You're going to be smashing your head into objects to break them, or dodging projectiles that'll smear your vision. It is easily the most creative, brilliant, and charming platformer that I've ever played on PlayStation.
Number 2.
Kiryu's final chapter is finally here with Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. We watch the man tackle grandfatherhood, traveling to Hiroshima to try and find the father of his grandson, all the while taking on the Chinese mafia amongst other criminal groups who all have their eyes set on Kiryu's newborn grandson. The Yakuza games all play kinda same-ish, so I don't always play them to the end, but Yakuza 6's story had me hooked like a fish. This journey was more personal than ever for Kiryu, landing him in a situation where he needs to make the proper sacrifices to assure the best future for his family. The cast of characters here was easily my favorite in the series. On top of a lot of familiar faces like Akiyama, we also spent a lot of time with a local group of idiots in Hiroshima, and they are impossible not to love. Beat Takeshi, this dude gave an amazing performance as Toru, easily the highlight of the entire cast. I really liked how they handled leveling up in this game, with the whole hunger gauge thing. Like, for once I actually felt inclined to visit several restaurants and experiment with what meals would reap certain rewards. And the combat, while obviously very familiar, it introduces a more dynamic camera that gets in real close when the action heats up. It makes every punch feel so much more satisfying when the game reels us in to be part of it. And of course, you've got your typical Yakuza silliness sprinkled on the side to keep you entertained, but the main plot of this thing was phenomenal. The twists and turns and development of these stupid-ass characters that I grew to love as I beat the ever-loving crap out of goons around town. The finale to Kiryu's story was an amazing experience to play through, and it's easily my favorite Yakuza game.
Number 1.
Alright, I'm gonna sit you guys down for a second and be real. Most of the Game of the Year awards I see go to the big, high-budget games with the pretty graphics and the gigantic open world with like a million things to do, but sometimes it's up to the little guys to take a step back and think not about how good you can make someone's face look or how big you can make a world, but instead on how the game plays. Celeste knows exactly what it wants to be, and it focuses entirely on just that. A screen-by-screen platformer that takes age-old ideas and morphs them into something new. Stuff like evil clones chasing you, that's been a thing since like Rayman 1, but that didn't stop Celeste from finding a unique and brand new way to implement it. Every single screen in this game has level design that feels so delicately hand-painted. Like every spike, every platform, every moving object, every pixel of this game feels carefully planned and entirely deliberate. Every single level introduces something completely new, but it's not what it comes up with, but rather what this game does with those things that had me blown away over and over and over. That soundtrack too, man, it is ridiculously good. It's very somber and ambient, yet it also feels energetic and determined. And that perfectly outlines this character that you play as, Madeline. She's a young Canadian girl that battles her depression as she tackles the challenge of climbing Mount Celeste. Her poor mental health even physically manifests as the game's villain, and the way the narrative handles their interactions, it's very true to the struggle that people who suffer from these things often go through. Watching Madeline fight with herself as she climbed to the top, it's a very man versus self kind of plot, right? Sometimes overcoming yourself is even more difficult than overcoming the mountain itself. And that's saying a lot, because this thing is a challenge and a half to scale. And not even just the main story, but you unlock these B-side versions of each level that offer far greater challenges. And this is where the level design starts to get really ambitious. And then you got the C-sides, which were made by Satan and Hell, and I had an amazing time dying over and over and over trying to beat these things and tearing my hair out. I could not stop. I love this game so much, man. Ever since I played Super Meat Boy, I've just really wanted something that would take that idea of the single-screen platformer to the next level. And Celeste was finally that game for me. It is the best 2D platformer game I have played since Rayman Legends, and it's my favorite thing that I have played all year. So, yeah, those are the 10 games I love most this year, but before I end the video, I want to give a couple of honorable mentions. Firstly, there's Tetris Effect, and I know you're probably thinking, like, it's Tetris, how do you make Tetris amazing? Play it in VR and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And secondly, we got The Messenger. It's a really cool 2D 8-bit side-scrolling action game, kind of like the original Ninja Gaiden, but there's this really cool there's a big change halfway through. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but it's really, really interesting. Definitely worth playing those two. It was a pretty good year for games, yeah, but I think I'm going to remember 2018 more so for my personal achievements rather than what video games I played, right? Like, this was the year that I finally started seeing big boy numbers on this channel, and I also paid off one of my student loans. That was pretty huge for me. I'm going to be paying off the other one for like another 8 years. What can you do? But I'm just glad I'm getting something out of this film degree. And 2019's got some stuff I'm looking forward to as well. That RE2 remake looks incredible. Really excited for that. I hope that Animal Crossing game does drop this year because I love me some Animal Crossing. Metroid Prime 4 as well. I really hope we finally get to see what that game looks like. It's definitely not going to come out this year, but hey, I just want to see what that thing is going to play like. Also Sekiro, yeah, after getting to the Soul series and Bloodborne, of course, I'm crazy stoked for that one. But yeah, until those games come out, I'm gonna go play Glover. So hope you guys had a happy new year, and I'll see you guys again soon with some N64 games. Yo, and if you want to hear me talk a little bit more about Celeste, earlier this year I did a video talking about how Celeste borrows a lot of mechanics from the Mario series, and then how it transforms them into its own thing. And if you want to support the show, we've got the Patreon up. For $1 a month, you get our podcast. So yeah, I love you guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon.
Cool.